Well, we are here today with Kirk Anderson, and for some of our lift disability community, you're going to be a familiar name. But for those that are maybe new to the kind of lift and our group, you might be a stranger danger. So you've been connected with Jim and Ronnie though for quite some time.
Yeah.
How did you meet Jim and Ronnie?
We met on a camp in Wisconsin 20 years ago.
Okay.
Jim was a guest speaker at that camp, and Renette as well, I believe. And then my wife and I were there observing the camp.
Oh, nice.
We were interested in starting one in our state, and that's how we met. We've been friends ever since.
Nice. So that wasn't your camp. You eventually started a camp, 413. Is that right?
Correct.
But you've been a camp speaker for Lift's Camp Breakaway as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm really famous. I've been
all over, world renowned.
Yeah. No, I've done a couple camps for Lift, and then I've done some stuff for Special Touch, different camps around. But Jim and I would trade off. Like I would do his,
okay,
if he would come and do mine, and then like 2 or 3 into that, I was doing all the camps, and like he was not coming back.
He played you is what happened.
I know. It had something to do with honorariums, I think. But I don't know for sure about that. But I do know that he would be like, I can't make it to Arkansas. Well, where are you? I'm in St. Louis.
You know what he was doing.
That's further than Arkansas from here.
And you know what he was doing in St. Louis?
Watching games.
He was watching games. Yeah. Absolutely.
But he's always been that kind of a friend.
This will surprise you maybe. Before Jim and Ronnie are actually away on vacation right now.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah. And here you are.
Yeah, doing his job.
Yeah, we've got his desk set up so you can just, start doing some work if you want.
Sure.
But one of them said that you're a wannabe stand-up comedian.
Yeah, always have been.
Yeah? Is it wannabe or
Still,
are you, how legit are you?
Not very good. I'll tell you this. I was booed off stage at a camp in Minnesota.
Okay.
And you can ask Jim about that.
I've heard those stories.
I was literally asked to please get off the stage.
And they were being for real.
Yeah, and when you have like a comedian's heart, that hurts, man.
Well, yeah.
I've never gotten over it. It's been 18 years probably.
That's a knock on the pride for sure.
It's tough to get back out there.
Did you?
Yeah, but I didn't succeed.
Have you been booed off stage since then?
Not since then.
Well, that's good.
I've kind of gotten sort of an audience radar. I can kind of
when you're getting close to that, you back up a little bit.
Take a different turn.
Maybe ask to pray or something.
Take an offering.
Yeah,
that usually calms people right down. But
yeah,
that was
go to the bathroom at that time, right?
A really tough crowd.
Yeah,
My daughter still talks about that.
Man.
Yeah.
So I've never been a camp speaker. I've been a youth pastor in ministry. I've never been booed off stage, so I will
give it time. If you ever get into it prepared me well for lead pastoring.
Oh yeah,
it's very similar. I've had some mornings where I thought I was going to have to leave.
One of my goals in ministry is to never be booed off stage.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's probably a lofty goal.
So far, batting 1,000.
Yep,
we'll see how that goes.
It's better than being voted out.
Yeah, like a survivor, like cast off the island.
That happens to pastors,
Yeah.
They have a little meeting, people
pretty
get
regular
a ballot, and then...
So let's get back on track.
Okay.
So tell me about your family, Kirk.
Well, I have a wife, Pam. She is the brains of all of everything we do, and probably the heart and soul, too. We met in church when she was 7 and I was 9. We immediately got married, right?
Wow.
Not really. But we really met in Sunday school at church. And
wow.
That's the greatest way, I think. But we married while she was in college, and then we've been there ever since and been in ministry ever since. I was in youth ministry part-time at that time, and then we together went into full-time ministry. And then we have 4 kids. We have 3 daughters. We have Jessica, Megan, and Emma. And then in between there, we had Matthew, and our son, our only son. And we've just been really blessed with our family.
Yeah.
God's been good to us.
And I know Jessica is your oldest. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And she was actually born with a disability. Is that?
Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And that actually kind of pushed you into the disability community. And
that's right.
And you've been doing it for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about what you're doing now. Obviously, COVID has kind of
Yeah.
the brakes, pump the brakes on a lot of things. But you guys are still actively involved in different ministries. Tell us about your ministries.
We started a camp for kids with special needs because we was going to send our daughter to her first church camp at 7-8 years old, and they said, we don't know what to do with her. We can't help you. Mm-hmm. So we made an arrangement to let her come to camp if my wife would go to camp with her, and we took actually took a camper, an RV, which we are avid RVers, and we were back then. And we took an RV down there, and she was able to handle all of Jessica's personal needs and things in the RV, and then she would be with the kids.
Nice.
But it wasn't immersive. She couldn't really enjoy camp like everybody else could. So one of our district officials said, hey, go check out this camp. We'll send you guys to check it out. This is what they do. We'd like to start something like this in our state. So we did, and we started a camp for kids with special needs in Arkansas in 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And 413 is
the name of our camp.
Is the name of your camp?
Yeah.
What was the connection?
It's
just random numbers?
Yeah, they're just, if you add them up. No, it's from Philippians 4:13. I can do all things. We ran into a little bit of that with our daughter from time to time. She'd be, I can't do that, or I can't do that. So the camp is. We know there's a lot of people out there, not just kids, but a lot of people out there who say, well, I can do this or this, but I can't do that, and we think that's horrible. So we feel like what we want to do is find a way for people to be able to do what they want to do, and that's where it came from. I can't.
I think for me, that's one of the most beautiful parts of camp is
is
the ones that there's no.
Oh, I know it. No.
There's only yeses. Like, yes, you can. Like, you can climb that tree.
That's
you
right.
You can ski. You can do this. And and to see those no, I can't become that was really awesome.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
So I love that your story is really a daughter's needs. Kind of birthed this huge desire, not just for your daughter to experience something, but for a lot of kids and young adults to be able to go experience things that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to do. But you have other roles. So you're a dad.
Right.
You're helping run a camp. You're also a pastor.
Right.
But I've also heard that you're like an artist with wood. Is that true?
I don't know about art, but I build things.
You build things. I hear it's beautiful.
Yeah, I own a small business that builds custom cabinetry.
Yeah.
I don't think we're in the art level yet, but we are in the black. So
there you go. That's good enough. That's good enough.
We just enjoy doing that. I've done that all of my life, basically. I started working in a cabinet shop in 7th grade at night. In the evenings after school, I'd walk across the street to this old gentleman who had a shop there. He taught me how to build cabinets, and who knew that it would come back later in life. It's always been kind of like a, kind of a side gig with the ministry, and so that's what we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, so you're a dad of 4.
Yeah.
I'm a dad of 3.
Yep. Keep going, bro.
Yeah, well, I think we're done. three.
Don't give up.
We're outnumbered.
You can.
We're already outnumbered, so why not? Just keep going.
Right.
Parenting is difficult. I've learned.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like the understatement, right?
Yeah.
But raising one with a special need, and then having 3 that have needs of their own.
Right.
How do you juggle that? How do you juggle time when more attention is maybe placed on one? How do you do that?
Boy, I tell you, that's a great question, and it's my wife has been stellar at that. Like knowing that I have 4 kids, not 3 regular kids and 1 with special needs. We just have 4 kids. Mm-hmm. One will require more attention at certain times in the day or at certain times in her life, but they all have times like that. Mm-hmm. And so we just don't, I don't know, we don't see it. I guess that's a blessing because we don't see it that like it's difficult. It's just parenting. But I mean, are your three all exactly the same?
They're not.
They're
no,
different,
they're
right?
really, really different.
So I mean,
each
they
one.
all are. So they all have special needs. They have
Sure.
special needs for more time or more one-on-one or less one-on-one. I
Right.
don't want to be around you. And then as they grow through different phases, we've noticed that. You know, with Jessica, our oldest, she's had some really traumatic phases in her life physically. But so have our others.
Right.
You know, and so I don't know, just grace of God and a wife that is really a superstar mom.
Yeah.
And we just kind of get through it like that.
Right. That's really good.
Yeah.
And just kind of stepping back. And I think a lot of times in like our culture, we see somebody with a disability and we make all of these assumptions about that disability or that person. And to be able to look at each child as individual needs, and to not be overwhelmed by a diagnosis. And I think that it can be overwhelming when you have doctors telling you certain things. And you know, Jim, doctors told his mom that he wasn't going to live past 10.
Yeah, we had the same thing.
And so
12 years old would be outside. And you know what? I think they were being honest at the time. But the way, two things. One, God has his own plan.
Yeah.
And that's the plan. The other is medical knowledge has increased so much, you know, for them to say in 12 years, maybe.
Right.
But at the same time, they knew that in 12 years, advances in medical science would be phenomenal.
Sure.
So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. With a 31-year-old at our house.
Right.
You know, but
that doctor told you.
Yeah.
But it can be, to me, like, and parents that I've talked to, those diagnoses and those kind of, hey, like, this is a worst case scenario, but sometimes, like, it shines such a giant spotlight on the disability that maybe you shift your focus off of that individual and you put all of your focus on the disability and the stress and the anxiety of that.
Yeah.
Man, my goodness, like, I can only imagine the weight of a parent that's trying to walk through that where they've got doctors telling them these huge things, you know.
You know what we noticed? We noticed something early on. Okay, here we are, new parents with a child with a lot of needs. So we decided we would find a support group, and we would get in a support group because there really wasn't anything inside the church at all. Well, just pray for healing. You know, that's how the church operated basically. Or the other side was just love her. She's God's a little angel. They didn't know how mean she was, you know. But that was kind of the thing, you know. Yeah. And so we thought we need to get in a support group. So we went and joined a support group, just a public, not a church thing. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. You know, it was parents that you just described that they couldn't even see the child anymore. They could only see how bad they've been treated by the school system, how bad the government was treating them, how little help they were getting from these two entities.
Right.
And they were angry. All of them were angry. We left the first meeting, and I looked at my wife, and she was already shaking her head. And she's like,
we're not going back.
We have a community already around us, and it's our church. And no, they don't. They really don't have a clue about what we're doing any more than we do. But they'll gather around us in an instant and pray. And she said, I would rather that Jessica grow up in an environment where people are happy than in a house where everybody's angry about the government or the schools or this or that. And I totally get that.
It was a venting session, and
really
they needed a place to vent.
But that was not where we needed to be.
You didn't leave encouraged, for sure.
Not at all. And we were going to have to pay to be in the thing. It was really crazy. But we felt like that's not the place for us. And it may be the salvation for some people, which is not for us. And so we learned that we would just take things day by day. This, you know, one of the things we learned early on that caught our attention was someone in a restaurant said, they came up and, you know, it's very customary for people to talk to you rather than your child because they don't know if they can understand or, I understand that. So a young lady that was waiting for us at a table said, how do I address your daughter? Is she special needs? Is she disabled? How do I address her? I said, Jessica would work.
Huh.
And she just smiled ear to ear because that's really what she was asking. Can I
Right.
just call her by name?
Right.
And so that was kind of an epiphany moment for us. Like, let's just address everything as a Jessica thing rather than this is a spina bifida thing. This is a Chiara malformation kind of thing. This is, let's don't get into all those things. Let's just
Right.
let's
Treat
just
her like
be
a
with
human.
Jessica. Yeah.
Well, that was a really cool move on that.
I think it was because
and bold. I mean,
I think it was a genuine learning thing for her to say, how do I do this? Man, I wish more people would just ask.
Yeah, that's actually it's interesting that you say that because when I started working here at Lyft, there was questions I had,
Sure,
and I didn't want to be like politically incorrect or insensitive, and Andrew, I've said this in other interviews, Andrew he released that tension so well. He's like, just ask questions, just ask questions.
Little
if it's
kids
offensive,
are the best.
I'm not going to be offended.
Yeah.
We're not going to be offended. This is a safe environment. And little kids are like, they're just like, whatever. Like we'll talk about
Jessica's, little kids love her chair and all that. And so they'll come up and say, why are you sitting in this chair? Why don't you get up?
Yeah.
So it gives her an opportunity, but I can't, this is what I have. And she'd rather they would do that than just stand over and stare.
Right. Just kind of be the...
We'd all rather people would just ask,
Yep.
Like,
you talked
13,
earlier, we go way back, you and I, 10 minutes or so
13,
now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So way back when we first were getting to know each other.
Yeah.
You actually talked about your other kids and how with Jessica's disability, it's kind of pushed you in some avenues that you guys wouldn't have been in as a family. Right. But it's actually kind of presented some really cool opportunities for your kids as well.
I think so.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, our kids from the earliest age have been involved with somebody who's not exactly like them. And so they've learned that that's really the norm of the world. Not I find my place not that I find my safest place where everyone looks like me,
right.
But I find my most fulfilling moments when the people around me don't look like me.
Wow.
So they've they've been involved in our camp since they were little. They don't have, I kind of grew up with a little trepidation being around people that doesn't look like me. And I was like, do I ask questions? Do I not ask? Do I not approach? They've been climbing up in someone's lap on a wheelchair since they were old enough to climb up there. And they don't, the heavy metal part never comes into question. It's just, can I sit on your lap?
Right.
So
they have a different normal than other kids.
I think so, and I think it's better.
Yeah.
I think they really see what kind of people we ought to be.
There's so many directions that we could go from there.
Yeah.
I instantly think of a family in our network. They don't have there's no direct connection to the disability community, but they serve at Breakaway, and Sherry and Will and Will from a really young guy has just been at camp, and it's so normal for him. He doesn't view people the way another 10-year-old might look at somebody and it's like, oh my gosh, that's weird or that's uncomfortable. He's completely comfortable around the disability community, but because his parents decide we're going to expose you to something that's different than you, and Sherry would say that same thing. It's been so healthy. His worldview has changed because of that. The way he views people, the way he's able to love people.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably one takeaway from this conversation is whether you are directly impacted by a disability and you're a parent, the benefits of exposing your children are through the roof.
Yeah.
I know for me, this isn't just a job that I'm doing, but our family is involved in Lyft, and I've got young kids as well.
Yeah.
And they're right there alongside of us, and we want them to be exposed, and we want them to learn how to love people that look a lot different than them.
When we started our camp 20 years ago, we couldn't get staff unless they were young people who had lots of kids. It just seemed like that's who we had.
Right.
And so we designed a way to bring those little kids in, and we built a camp track for them to run. It was like a kids camp that ran simultaneous to our special needs camp. And then all our meals were shared, and all of our service times were shared. And some activities we were able to develop where we could share those. And we had been warned by some folks that it was not the best idea, to do that, but that if we would, because it could distract from the experience for the camper. But what we found out was just the opposite. We actually found out that these little kids learned how to interact with people who weren't like them without any fear, because they thought it was natural for them to be there. It was just, this was their camp, and these were campers with them, and it was organic, almost accidental. Well, I guess maybe nothing's accidental with the Holy Spirit.
There's a sovereign God there still. Right?
But it was, it was very real. And those kids now have grown up, and they all, without exception, they all serve in one capacity or another as adults now in our camps. And this is going to sound like it's not really true, but it is. I could go down the list of those people that grew up in those camps, giving themselves to people that weren't like them, and you're going to see successful young adults, successful marriages, people that did well in school, did well in college, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And say what you want. There's something to be said about putting yourself in the place of a servant. And we know that as adults, how much that blesses us.
Right.
But if it's something that happened organically in your life from a young age, now you feel weird if you're not serving. And man, that's been a powerful kind of eye-opening thing for us.
Right.
And we wouldn't change that for the world now. We invite, our camp is set up a little different. Yours is a family camp. But we have a lot of folks come in from group homes who don't have families, so we serve them. But we have built-in families for them now because of this. And man, it just works. It's worked where we are.
And the Scripture has a lot to talk about that. That's how God designed us to live and to be fully alive, is when we're actually serving other people.
Right.
But our culture tells us, hey, the spotlight needs to be on you all the time.
Yeah. That's a lot of pressure, though.
It is a lot of pressure, and what you find is at the end of the day, you got to wake up tomorrow and you got to make it all about you again, and then you get to the end of that day and you still feel empty.
And if you get 3 days running and it's not about you, then you're dealing with depression, discouragement, disillusionment. But when you're outward focused, I'm having a rough day, but I got all of this, and so it totally changes the way you see yourself and see others. And we're just lucky to have been in on it.
Yeah.
To be able to see it with our own eyes.
You would encourage, listening to you would encourage the earlier the better, to start volunteering and investing in other people, right?
And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be in a kind of I encourage everybody to go get involved in one of these camps. They're everywhere. Right. And they're not just ours or yours. They're everywhere. Get involved. But be the person at the restaurant that brings your child over to meet my daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or someone else's son. You're not going to offend anyone by saying hi. And I think God put something in the heart of a young person as a child that is just an unconditional love for other people. And we train as adults, we train ourselves out of it.
Yep. Yeah.
By getting smarter, we train ourselves out of it.
Yeah. We can learn a lot from children.
Yeah.
We were at a restaurant the other day, and my youngest, Piper, asked my wife for a pen. I'm like, what in the world? I'm like, what is she doing? Why does she need a pen?
She's going to write on now.
She was writing on a napkin.
Yeah.
And when we were getting up, I was like, what is she doing? Why is she? She was writing a note to our server.
Yeah.
Thanking him for serving us so well.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, as an adult, we look for flaws in service. It's too long. Food wasn't hot enough. And here's my 10-year-old, thank you for serving us so well. Like I was so humbled.
Yeah, so
Felt bad about myself. But
we bend it out of shape because we are born that way,
mm-hmm.
shapen in the image of God,
mm-hmm.
with the heart of Christ, and we train ourselves out of it.
Yeah,
we educate ourselves out of it.
We do,
and that's too bad.
Yeah,
it's just really too bad. We need God to create that childlike heart in us again.
Yeah,
and I think that's where our best level serving comes from.
Well, when we first started doing these videos, there was a phrase that Jim said that has just stuck in my head ever since, and I've asked every person that we've interviewed. And he said somewhere along the lines of, adversity in a person's life is not a place that you stop, but it's actually a place that propels you into kind of a journey of discomfort, but it's a healthy place. And that phrase has been kind of replaying in my mind, because a lot of times adversity is a place that we stop.
Sure.
We become paralyzed a lot of times.
Yeah.
I don't like discomfort, so I'm not going to go down that trail. Right. Would you agree with that, first off? And two, how has that played out in your life?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with it, for sure. That's the difference between failure and success. I mean, if you talk to an athlete, you're going to get the same answer.
Right.
Look, I could have stopped here,
Mm-hmm.
but I pushed through it. The only thing I could say is in our story, it's, they handed us a daughter and said,
Right.
Here you go. And so there's that was good for me, because my tendency is to quit in the middle of adversity. That's my tendency. God gave me a wife who's the opposite of that, and I'm so thankful for that.
Right.
But mine is, that's too hard. We should quit.
Yeah.
But when they hand you a child,
wasn't an option.
It's not really an option.
Yeah.
So yes, there's some adversity there, but it pushes you to find the next quiet water. You know what I mean? You're going to have some whitewater times in your life raising a child, whatever their special need might be, and they all have it. But when you get on past it, there's going to be some quiet water there to reflect, to learn about that experience, to breathe, and to grow. So I think he's right, but I don't always think in his mind it may have been a heroic thing. In mine, it's always been I really didn't have a choice. It's either you keep pushing through this difficulty or you drown. So, but it's absolutely true. I mean, you will find the next time you get to that quiet water moment in your life, you'll find you are a person with new skills. You picked up stuff,
right?
Even if you didn't realize you were getting it. Some of the fear is gone, and you have tools in your tool bag to face the next challenge with.
Then James, I believe, consider it pure joy.
Yeah. All these kinds of temptations, all varied kinds of temptations,
it's not our natural instinct. Oh man, look at what
temptation time. Is it temptation
I'm
Thursday?
growing so much because of this.
It's not.
But it's so true.
It is
because of what develops in us.
But I think it's absolutely a hindsight kind of learning.
For sure.
Because you can't. I've never looked at a difficult situation and said, "Yeehaw! This is boy. I can't wait to get my new badge." But coming out of it, then you look back and you go, "Well, I know that wasn't me, God. So I know you were there, being my strength, my help, comfort." So I love that, though. I'm gonna have to use that.
You can steal it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to give them credit.
It's almost like a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah, for sure.
Similar to that.
I want to end. You're the first pastor that's sat on these chairs in these conversations, and I want to take advantage of that kind of pastor's heart. And I know week in and week out, you stand in front of people that are struggling and they're hurting and they've got stuff going on, and that pastor's heart wants to speak to them. There's a lot of people that will probably watch this video, and whether they're a parent or someone with a disability and they're facing adversity and maybe they're struggling and they don't know what's going on. They don't know which side's up and down. And what would you say to encourage? Let's just go really specific to a dad, to parents that are navigating these rough waters of not just a child with a disability, but other children that have other needs. Mm-hmm. Maybe they haven't been diagnosed with anything,
right?
But they're just trying to figure things out. How would you encourage them?
Man, I would go and read the Psalms, because and you're like, all of them. I'd start somewhere, because here's what you can do. You can jump into Psalms anywhere, and what you'll find is the psalmist David. You'll find in him men like us that on one psalm he's declaring the greatness of God. Your mercy endures forever. Mm-hmm. The next one will be, Lord, have you completely forgotten me? I feel abandoned. I feel alone. Right. Where are you? The reason I say to read the Psalms is because I think it's so real. That may not be the most encouraging thing people want to hear. Yeah. I wish I could tell you, go to church and pay your tithes and everything will be perfect, but right. It won't. But what I learn out of that is that I have a God who's so personally involved with me that he can handle my happy times, and he can handle my mad times and my in between. And begin now to develop a relationship like that with God, because he can handle it. And if I'm angry, I tell him that I'm angry. If I'm hurting, I tell him that I'm hurting. And I think he's the kind of God who cries with me, and he fumes with me, and he doesn't just walk and talk.
Right.
Know? He feels all that stuff.
Right.
So that would be my encouragement to anyone who's going through anything, is that, you know what, there's a God who wants to go through this with you. We just finished up another study we've studied so many times on Psalm 23, and something jumped out at me this time that I'd never seen before. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. I miss those paths a lot, right? But because sometimes I'm hurting, or sometimes I'm angry, or sometimes whatever. And then I get down on myself, but then this became so clear to me. He's leading me through this whatever. So number one, I'm never alone in it. Number two, he has a plan for it, because if he's leading me through it, he must know where he's going. He's God, right, after all. So that's encouragement to me. The number one lie of Satan to all of us is that you're all alone. Nobody else is going through what you're going through. No one else has a kid like this. No one else has a pain like this. No one else had a marriage like this. You're all alone. That's his number one lie. And the number one truth of relationship with a Heavenly Father is you're never alone.
Right.
Nope.
So good.
Satan is a liar. You are never alone. And so that's what I would encourage people with. In fact, that's pretty much my ministry in a nutshell, just because I just think people need to know that.
Maybe a bad time to say this. When we were getting ready for camp this year, we were like maybe 2 weeks out, and our theme was in Psalm 139. Knit me together, perfectly made, all these beautiful things. Yeah. And we were waiting for our camp shirts to come. And the original logo had the wrong scripture reference on it. And when we looked at it, it wasn't a very encouraging, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Right. It was David telling God to basically kill off all of his enemies. Yeah. And it was like, man, what a huge contrast from this guy's like, right, man, God, you're so good. And, they're high-fiving each other, it felt like. And then you've got this other verse that I never read until we had that mess up. And we got it fixed, by the way. Yeah. We didn't have camp shirts that said kill all the bad guys. Well, that would have been great. That's next year's theme. Right. That'd be great, right?
Jousting. Having jousting.
But it was just so weird. But it was also very telling of, this very real guy that was super real with God, with his emotions. Yeah. And we're like, we train ourselves
Right.
to always have the churchy
Right.
thing to say.
Yeah.
And sometimes
I would like to know, like, I want to know that screen printer because I think maybe he's a frustrated pastor. You know, he's just like, I just don't. I'm not buying this today. This is what I'm.
This is what I'm feeling.
Come
I've got
on,
some
God.
enemies that didn't pay me.
Yeah. Just had a board meeting.
Yeah. Well, Kurt, I want to thank you so much for stopping by.
You bet.
You've also come the longest to be interviewed.
Right.
You drove here from Arkansas for this interview.
It's only about 17 hours.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's worth it. I was supposed to have a burger fight with Jim.
But he
But
left.
he-
He heard you were coming.
Yeah, he blew out of here to go
So
watch
he
the Cardinals.
left.
Yeah.
I'll tell him.
But I'm not gonna let this adversity hold me down.
Push forward in that relationship.
I'm gonna drive on back home. No, we love you guys, man. We love what Jim and Renette and what the team here is doing, man. It just the whole lift thing. It's just perfect, and we're honored to be friends.
Yeah,
Of the ministry,
your family
and supporters. We do that too, by the way. So we're thankful that we get to do that. But and our church too. We love you guys. I got to get him back for a service, man. It's been too long.
Yeah,
but
let's do it.
It's,
I think he owes you now.
I think he only does certain. Like if your attendance is below a certain.
Probably. That's probably true. He's a big guy.
He has a big head.
Big time.
He has a big old head.
He does.
I know that.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.